Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello, this is Kelly Covert, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you decided to press play today. And I have a 100% not very sexy conversation today. And I say that in jest because Sara La DelfaKirsch is on the podcast today to talk about financial empowerment. And the truth about financial empowerment is that it takes work. And it's not always easy and it's not always fun, but man, does it yield results. And the work might not be sexy, but the results sure are. And so I'm really excited to bring Sara to you today to talk about this really important conversation, this topic that women often skirt around. So including me. I'm doing this also for myself. I have to be 100% transparent with you guys. Before we get to that, I am so excited to talk to you guys about what is coming up in April in the lands of Kelly Covert. And that is that at the end of this month, I am going to be doing another one of my 5 days of journaling programs live. And that means that every day for 5 days, we're going to be connecting together. We're going to be sharing some really beautiful journaling prompts and really getting down into and connecting with our inner voice on a daily basis. So this 5 days of journaling is totally free, and it's for you if you've never journaled a day in your life, and it's also for you if you journal every single day. So you can come at it at whatever place you are in your journey. So this is going to begin Sunday, April 22nd, and I'm super excited to be bringing this to you again. Throughout the past year, I've done probably about 4 of these live 5 days of journaling. It's always the 5 days of journaling program for visionary women is always available on my website, but this is when we go through and we do it together and we really have that accountability of the group. So if this sounds appealing to you, I want you to check it out. All you have to do is put your name and your email in and you will be in. And the link for that is kellycovert.com/inner voice, because that is what we're going to be digging into, how to connect with your inner voice through journaling. So please join me for those 5 days starting April 22nd. And if you're listening to this after that date, no worries. You can still go to that link and you can do the program on your own. So now I'm going to get to our interview with Sara, but first I want to read you her bio. Sara La DelfaKirsch is an expert in marketing, accounting, and all things business. She is a mom of 2 boys and has owned a business in one form or another for the past 25 years, helping her clients generate well over $40 million in sales while increasing their profits. Sara has worked with small business owners in just about every industry and from around the world, assisting them in finding the right customers and to fall in love with their businesses again. Her business is marketing is not selling, debunking business myths that hold people back from achieving true success and financial freedom while living life authentically and passionately. And I will put links to her website and all of that fun stuff in the podcast app notes and the show notes page on the website. So let's get to Sara. Sara La DelfaKirsch, I am so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I am just truly honored that you asked me to be a part of this, because this is just, we live in exciting times, and I love being able to share, my message with a bunch of people. And I just feel truly honored that you chose me to come onto your platform and to speak with your clients and your readers and to try to help them, gain a little bit more control back in their lives. So thank you very much.
Well, and I have to say, I often choose my guests in a sort of selfish way because I think, what would I really like to have a conversation about? What do I really want to learn, and what's being present in my life right now? And that's a big reason why I asked you to come on, because you are going to talk about financial empowerment of women, like how we can start to take the reins financially in our own life and understand how to be living a life that is fully connected, but then also sort of like in this practical, real world. And I have to be honest with you, this is not my zone of genius, shall we say. Here we are, like it's tax time, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do that. And it just makes me cringe every year. So why don't you just start off by telling us what you mean when you say be financially empowered?
Okay, so I got to give just a little bit of backstory on this, a little bit of history, because not necessarily my own personal history, but with a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years, their mindset is what really kept them from truly becoming empowered. I'm almost 40, so I grew up in, the 1980s, the 1990s, primarily. And I was kind of fed the Disney stories of, someday your prince will come and he will take care of you. But I also, grew up, as well as a lot of the people that I've worked with the 1940s and 50s values that women were supposed to stay in the home. They were supposed to raise their kids. They weren't supposed to work a job unless they absolutely had to, or, maybe be able to do it while the kids were in school or something along those lines. And that programming that especially women have received over the past 5, 6, 7 decades really has done us a major disservice, because it's kept us from being able to achieve financial freedom for ourselves. It's kept us dependent on others that don't always have our best interests in mind. So, personally, I've had this experience where my ex-husband put us thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. I mean, he opened up accounts in my name and that I had no idea about until, the divorce proceedings started. And then all of a sudden, I've got $12,000 worth of debts and stuff that I have to take care of as a part of these divorce proceedings because they were in my name, but I didn't rack up the debt. And that's because I gave away my personal power in regards to not only finance, but just general control of my own life. I put my trust into somebody that frankly didn't deserve it. And I've worked with a lot of people, especially a lot of women that have gone through similar types of things, where it's been their parents who have taken advantage of them, or, a spouse, or, a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, or even sometimes bosses. So it's really super important to me to help women get that power back through literally simple things that frankly we should have been taught as kids that most of us weren't.
Mm-hmm. Before we dive into those simple things, because I definitely want to go there, I want to go back to the point of trust. You said you put your trust, and you see your clients put trust in people that they shouldn't be trustful of. And I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, because I'm also feeling like it's not just about putting your trust into someone you can't trust when you talk about this, being financially empowered. And so here's a perfect example. I 100% trust my husband. That doesn't mean I'm relieved of the personal responsibility of taking care of my own financial health, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. But unfortunately, there's a lot of women out there that believe that trust that they engender to others means that they're supposed to give up that control and that responsibility. And unfortunately, I mean, you're already way ahead of the game. You trust your husband. You realize that it's still your responsibility on this. You're so far ahead of the game, it's not even funny. So kudos to you. Congrats to you, because a lot of people and a lot of women don't realize that one simple portion of that concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And I think this is true in all areas of our life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being empowered means, I mean, that's like, people throw that term around like empowerment and female empowerment, and I'm a powerful woman. But when it comes right down to it, what that means is we have responsibility.
Absolutely.
To take care of these things ourselves. And I think that that's the side of empowerment that is not often talked about, because that means we can't blame anybody else if we find ourselves in, a situation that could have been prevented somehow. And I think that's something that we don't always want to dig into. And so I just thought it's worth saying, it's worth calling out, like, yes, we want you to be empowered. And yes, that means no more victim playing. Step up, see what you need to do, and take that responsibility, and understand that you're in charge of your life and you're in charge of the choices that you make, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just a term to be thrown around like mindset. Mindset is another great word that's thrown around. People say, oh, well, you need to change your mindset. Okay, that's fine. That's fabulous. That doesn't matter. Tell me what I need to do to change my mindset.
Yeah,
tell
you have
me
to have the understanding.
how I need to take that power back. You need to show me. And it can't be just done in generic terms either. There's so much generic crap that's out there nowadays where people are just regurgitating information, especially around empowerment or taking back your power or mindset, but they're not really getting into the nitty-gritty of how you do it. And it's not pretty, it's just like finances is not always a pretty thing,
it's not glamorous.
Yes, it isn't. I mean, who wants to sit at a computer and put in a bunch of data entry numbers, on what's your credit card statement? Well, no, it's not fun. But if you make it fun, if you choose to make it fun, if you change your mindset around it, you help to take back that power of, oh, I've only, I've made, 15 transactions during the week. Instead of waiting until the end of the month, do it during the week, and then by the time the end of the month comes, you can look at your statement and be like, oh, I've already got all this in here. Yep. Everything matches up. Life is good.
Or if you're like me, waiting until the end of the year, which is sometimes what I do. Okay. So you told me before we started this interview that you could get even me excited about doing these financial things. So I'm ready. Like, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to let you do it. And why don't we start with you? You were talking about the simple things that we can start to do to take back our power and really be in control of our financial health.
Absolutely. Okay. So basically, and I hate to say that this sounds incredibly simple. The actions themselves are simple, but our resistance to doing them can be incredibly difficult. Okay. So I will say that with a caveat. Okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things that you can do, and this applies whether or not we're talking about personal finance, business finance, and finance includes not only, dealing with, applying for loans, whether it's a mortgage or a business loan or general bookkeeping or taxation and accounting. Okay. So financing covers all of this when I talk about finance. When I refer to bookkeeping, it's not only your personal bookkeeping or just keeping track of your own expenses, but it could be business as well. So one of the simple things that you can do to take back your own power, and probably the first step that everyone should take, is to sit down and look at your accounts. Okay. Make sure that you've got access to all of your accounts. If you happen to be married, or if you're in a long-term relationship, or, maybe you share an account with a significant other of some sort, or even if you share it with your parents or your kids, make sure you have access to those accounts and make sure you have access to those statements. And this can be a very uncomfortable conversation to have with other people, like your spouse or your kids or whatever, because they might be doing some things that you don't necessarily approve of and they don't want you to see it. So it can be very uncomfortable. But the fact is, if your name is on an account, doesn't matter what kind of account, if it's a credit card, bank account, savings, investments, you need to have access to it, and you need to be able to view the statements at any time of the day or night. Okay. And that's really step number one.
I love this so much. And I will say, as a personal testament to this, I did this about 2 years ago. I really started to get clear on what my numbers were. And what that meant was, my husband is very financially savvy. He likes to take care of all of that stuff. And we've had conversations before about, well, maybe I should do it. Like I would suggest. And he would be like, oh, no. And then I realized, you know what? I don't have to be sort of paying all of the bills, but I still have a responsibility to know what's in those accounts. And to know how, for example, if something, God forbid, happened to him, where is our retirement account?
Bingo.
How do I get into that? Where are our insurance accounts? And I think that there are a lot of women who, and I was included, I did not know what the passwords were. I didn't know where to find them. And he, I think when I approached him about this, he sort of was like trying to hold on to the control piece. And I just had to reassure him, like, this is not about me wanting to go in and like spend money however which way.
Right.
This is about me wanting to be a part of the conversation and wanting to be able to have my own power. So I love this. And ladies, if you have not done this yet in your relationship, you need to do it.
Absolutely. Right away. And, it's one of those uncomfortable conversations that you just have to suck it up and have. I've got a really good example of this. Somebody that I helped get through something like this, a friend of mine that I later helped her in her business, she lost her husband suddenly. He died in a car crash. I mean, just a total freak accident. And she had absolutely no clue. She had 2 kids. They owned a business together. It wasn't, a super profitable business, but now all of a sudden, because of his responsibilities within the business, he was kind of like the creator, salesperson. She kind of took care of all the back end stuff. And all of a sudden, in the course of 5 seconds, and her husband dying in that car crash, she literally had no idea how she was going to take care of herself, how to take care of her kids. She had no idea where any of the accounts were, because even though she was doing the admin stuff on the back end, he took care of all of the finance. Now, I mean, they had a really great relationship. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't like trying to steal money and, waste it on things or anything like that. But it took her probably a good 4 to 5 years to really recover from all of that, because she had no idea where any of the accounts were. She had no idea about the expenses that were, coming auto-debited out of the accounts and things of that nature. And it just made her life even more stressful to have to deal with all of that financial stuff. All of a sudden, that financial burden being placed on her. Now I've got to take care of these kids, and I got to make sure that the house is being paid for, that the business rent is being paid for. But I have no idea where any of this stuff is. So that's why it is so incredibly important to have that conversation. And I want to move on to point number 2, because this also is super important. And that is literally to forgive yourself for not doing this sooner. Okay?
I love that step so much. That's so perfect,
it is
Sara.
so important. It is so incredibly important, because we haven't had that conversation with our significant others, or even just with ourselves. If you're single and you're like, oh, okay, fine. I've got my accounts here. I know where my accounts are. Well, you know what? You might have an account or 2 outstanding somewhere that you forgot about. So it's important to know where all that is. But as women, we tend to beat ourselves up through the guilt trip and all of that, when we don't do something. And it's kind of like smack yourself on the forehead. God, I should have done this sooner, that kind of a thing. And I think it's really super important that you forgive yourself for not taking action prior to having that conversation and prior to getting all of your ducks in a row, getting all of your account access and knowing what's in those accounts, how the beneficiaries play out and things of that nature, and I cannot stress this enough. It is so important to not guilt trip yourself about this, to say, okay, you know what? I effed up. I forgive myself, and it's time to make a change starting now. And let me tell you something. Changing your financial outlook is so much easier than starting a diet and sticking with it. Okay, because it's little tiny things that you can do every single day that will impact your financial health 10 to 100-fold. So forgive yourself next.
Love it. Perfection is not required.
No, absolutely not. And it's not like, you also need to, number 3, don't put pressure on yourself to get it all done in an hour. Okay, seriously. Start with one account a day if you are super afraid to, dig your toes in and make sure you've got that access. And start a list, okay? Whether it's a notebook, or I don't recommend doing it on computers because computers can be hacked or whatnot, but to have an actual physical notebook or file in a filing cabinet or something that keeps track of all those websites and user logins and what the security questions are and things of that nature, because that's going to come in handy for whoever has to deal with your estate if something ever happens to you. So you're not only taking care of your own future, but you're also ensuring that whoever has to deal with your estate can access that information to be able to settle your estate, make sure if you have kids that, the monies and the accounts go to the kids and are dispersed properly. And things of that nature. And there's other legal stuff to think about, but just to take that first step is so important. So take that step, have that conversation, start gathering those accounts, forgive yourself, and don't put pressure on yourself. I mean, those are probably the 3 most important things. If you don't listen to another word I say, just listen to those 3 things. That's all I ask.
I love it. I mean, and you know what? Like you said, these are simple things that are not exactly easy. So simple and easy are 2 different things. And you mentioned that a lot of times what you see people bumping up into resistance. So my question is, what does that resistance look like? And how can we push through that?
Well, it's different for everybody. And part of that is you have to know yourself enough to say, okay, I am resistant to change, especially in this particular area. How do I push through it? Because everybody's a little bit different. For me, I happen to be a Capricorn. I also happen to be extremely stubborn. So for me to say I'm going to push through it means I'm just going to push through it. I'm just going to get it done, even if I don't like it. And, that could be the mom and me talking because I've got kids. So it could just be the mom and me saying, well, somebody has to do it. And, as mom, I'm used to cleaning up everybody's messes. So I might as well just get this one done and over with so that it gets done right. Mm-hmm. So that's what works for me. But for some other people, like I could sit down and if I was doing this for the first time, gathering up all of my accounts, I would clear an afternoon and I would say, okay, I've got, this Sunday afternoon where the kids are off. I don't have to worry about my husband. He's doing his own thing. And I'm going to, put myself in my home office and I'm going to work for 3 solid hours on this. And just the only thing I'm going to do is make sure I've got the usernames, the logins, the passwords, the security questions, and I'm going to write down at this moment in time the balance is for each account, and I'm not going to do any sort of analysis. I'm just going to do just that one piece. Mm-hmm. And then, figure out a way to go back and actually do the analysis on each of the different accounts. For other people, it could just simply be that it's just so incredibly overwhelming and they are so incredibly scared to do it. Recognize that fear, okay? Forgive yourself for it. Don't put pressure on yourself. Start with one account. Maybe it's one that you already access, on a monthly basis. It could be a credit card, could be a bank account, could be an investment account, could be whatever. Just do that one account. The next day, do another one. If you happen to be motivated to do another account at the same time, then do that too, until you've got all of them lined up and ready to go and you've got that information written down. It's going to depend upon how you work through various challenges. And this can be extremely scary. Okay. Maybe you're fortunate enough that when you have that conversation with your significant other, they hand you a piece of paper that's already got everything on it. Then you just got to go through and double check. Make sure everything works, put another copy in a place where you will remember where it is that you can have access to at all times, or, go through and just kind of start doing your review. whatever it is that you want, but you just have to take your time to do it. Take your time. Don't rush yourself. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Don't guilt trip yourself, and just say, okay, here's Capital One, and I'm going to log in and I'm going to get this information. And that's all there is to it.
I think I love all of these things. And you spoke a lot into fear. And I think that it's worth saying that, yes, resistance shows up as fear frequently, but it can also show up as other things. It can show up as procrastination. It can show up as making excuses, for why you can't do it or why you shouldn't do it. And so I think just to be really clear with yourself of your why, of like why you're choosing to not take care of these things, because there is something there. And I think this is where we can really rely on our inner voice, right? The voice that is our true wisdom. We can really go deep into that place and know that we are protected, know that we're safe, know that we are worthy, and ask our inner voice, what is next?
Absolutely. And sometimes our inner voice is also telling us when we start feeling a great amount of resistance to something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be finance. Sometimes that's the stories that we've been told, and our inner voice has been trained to believe those bullshit stories.
Well, and I'll just pop in here real quick and just say I call that the inner mean girl voice. So when I'm talking about the inner voice, I'm talking about our purest, always there center point of wisdom within us. But there are other voices, and you are exactly right that they are trained by the bullshit stories, by the programming, 7 and 8 generations of programming of what we think things should look like or how things should be. And I think that having the discernment to understand the difference is so important, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when you start hearing those voices in your head for the resistance, so like you procrastinate by going on social media, or you decide, for the first time in a week, you'd rather go cook something in the kitchen and you hate cooking, but you'd rather go do that than, look at a single account online.
I have to clean the toilets right now.
Exactly right. Or I have to go mow the lawn, or whatever the case may be, and that's the mean voice coming out to say, I'm going to make you resist this so much, where your real inner voice, the one that is truly going to guide you, it's not shouting, it's whispering to you. And you have to make that choice to listen to the whisper instead of to the mean voice. Okay. The mean girls are always loud. They're always super, super, super loud. They're trying to get your attention. They're trying to do it for their 15 minutes of fame. Don't give it to them. You have to make that choice, and that takes practice, especially if you've been listening to the mean inner voice for so long. So by taking the time to recognize, okay, this is something I need to do. My inner voice says, just do one. Just do one. Just take that one little step, and it's a whisper. It's a little tiny nudge. The mean girls, they're going to shove you as hard as they can. That's all there is to it.
And you know what? And this is the thing too. And you guys who are listening know that I've said this over and over again. Just because you can hear your inner voice and discern between that and the inner mean girl voice doesn't mean that the voice we don't want goes away.
Yeah, it never truly goes away.
It's still there, and we still have to bump up against that, and that's totally normal. So I don't want you guys to think, oh, there must be something wrong with me that I can't be like 100% connected all the time. No. Like that's life, and that's called being a human. So absolutely, really give yourself grace in that area. Okay,
and
Sarah.
Forgiveness too.
Right. So we've kind of gathered all of our accounts. We've investigated. We know what we have. We know where it is. We know how to get into it. And now it's on to like day-to-day living.
Right.
What practical tips financially do you have for us just to make our day-to-day financial health better?
Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. One of the most obvious and easiest to set up that doesn't require a lot of difficulty. So here, if you're working for somebody, you're an employee, if you're being paid by direct deposit, if you don't need, and by need, I'm talking absolute basic essentials of like food, housing payments, car insurance, gas for the car, things of that nature. Anything that you don't need, cut one thing out of your life. Okay, so here's an example. Say you've got an Amazon membership and you subscribe to both Starz, HBO, and Cinemax. Cut one of those out of your life. Okay, and then from your job, when you're being paid in direct deposit, have them split that direct deposit into 2 accounts. The majority of your money going off into, whatever main checking account that you use to pay all of your bills out of. And then have, say, 10% or 5% going into a savings account that you don't even really think about. Okay? That is something that is so incredibly simple, and you will be very surprised one day when you log into your accounts and you see that savings account now has $1,000 in it, or $10,000, or $50,000, depending on how much time it's been open for. Mm-hmm. Don't touch that account. Just leave it there, because you can use it for emergencies. You could use it for, your anniversary vacation. You could use it for pretty much anything. Maybe you want to start your own business, and get out from underneath a 9-to-5 and do your own thing. That could be your startup capital right there. And so you don't have to go and take out a loan. Or maybe it gives you just the financial security in your mind that money is there and available if you need it. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the easiest and simplest ways to start building up that financial buffer, especially if you realize, oh, well, I've got credit card debt, I've got all these other things. I will say, though, don't do that if you've got more than $5,000 in credit card debt that you cannot pay off all in one lump sum, okay? You should be paying off your credit cards every single month in full. Now, I realize that for a lot of us, that's not always the case. So that's when you're going to have another hard conversation with both yourself and possibly your significant other or kids or whatever. You need to evaluate where your expenses are going, how much money you're spending on eating out or shopping or doing, purchasing things online. You need to evaluate what you're spending your money on and what your goals really are. What do you really want to do with your money? Do you like living the lifestyle that you've got now, or are you planning for retirement? For those of you who actually have kids, I hear from a lot of moms, they're like, I will do anything for my kids. I will sacrifice all sorts of stuff for my kids. Well, I would ask you to evaluate your retirement plans first before giving everything to your kids, because one of the things that you have to take into consideration is the fact that everyone gets older. You're going to require some sort of long-term care, possibly, or you're going to have more medical expenses as you get older. One of the best gifts that you can give your kids is to have that buffer and those savings and your retirement in place to take care of you so that they don't have to use their money to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice, because I think that's something we don't like to think about. But it's really common, and I think that there are a lot of women who are at the age now that are listening to this where your parents may be in that position where you wonder, and we've had to have conversations with my parents about this, about like where they are, like are things okay, like do we need to have that conversation about going forward what things might look like if circumstances change. And those are really awkward conversations to have, but they're so valuable, because then it takes that wondering away. Like you really know you're on solid ground. So
absolutely,
Sara, all of these things I think are so wise and so practical and like not 100% not sexy at all, right?
Well, they seem very unsexy at the moment, but it's only because it's not business as usual for you or for those that are listening. And to get you excited about bookkeeping, bookkeeping really is nothing more than just gathering up all your receipts, your transactions, putting them into a software, and making sure that you're on track for the goals that you want to achieve. Whether that's, taking a trip around the world for 6 months or planning for retirement. You want to have, $5 million in the bank or $2 million or whatever the case may be. Bookkeeping can actually be a lot of fun, only because with the tools that we have today compared to even, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, it is so much simpler. It is so much easier. You can sign up for like Quicken. Intuit has their program, Quicken, that's out there. And that's just one of many programs. You can hook up your bank accounts, all of your accounts, your investment accounts, your credit cards, your bank accounts, savings, all these different types of accounts, and auto import all of these transactions. And all you have to do is like once a week, and I recommend doing at least once a week. Don't do once a month, once a week. Go into the Quicken software, double check your transactions, make sure that there's no fraud, and watch your savings grow. And if you start seeing unusual expenses or unusual amounts of expenses, you can adjust it, and you don't have to do things like, creating a budget and sticking to it and all this other crap. Not everyone's going to follow a budget, and people are too strict and straightforward with it. But if you're keeping an eye on your expenses, and you watch your checking account grow because you're not spending that money on unnecessary things. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that you have to cut out everything. I happen to love Starbucks. So once or twice a week.
We're soul sisters, lady.
Yes, I love it. But, Starbucks, it gets kind of expensive, when you're spending, like what I particularly like to get happens to be a venti caramel macchiato with 2 extra shots because I'm a caffeine junkie. So, but by the time you add in the extra shots and everything, we're talking like a $7 drink. Well, if you do that twice a week, that's $14 a week. So it starts to add up really, really, really fast. I used to drink Starbucks a lot more. Now I don't. Now I use it as a treat so that every week when I go through and I look at my expenses, and I'll be totally honest, I'll even do this from Starbucks sometimes. I'll log into their Wi-Fi and I will review my accounts while I'm sitting there sipping on my caramel macchiato.
Yes. Okay. So I am so glad that you said that because I had this thought earlier and then it left me as we kept diving into the conversation. But I think that is such good advice to make this process enjoyable. Like
Absolutely.
Figure out a way to do it so it's fun. So here's a perfect example. Yep. Every, couple of weeks, my husband would sit down to pay the bills. And it was like, I would say because daddy's paying the bills, give him space, because he would like get angry and like it would be this big thing. And if something wasn't quite right, we called it like the Inquisition. Like he would question me and it was this big thing. And so around the time that we had the conversation about our accounts, this is a couple years ago, I said, look, I would like to be partners in this. And one thing that I'm really good at is being positive. And so let's do this together. Like, let's pay bills together. Let's make this something that we do that is special for us. And so now we sit down on the couch and I have our bank app on my phone. He balances the checkbooks and goes through the things and he says, okay, pay this one. And he tells me the amount and I do it. And then at the end, like we high five each other, we give each other a kiss, which still makes him rolls his eyes a little bit, but that's okay because it is way better than it used to be. So, go get yourself a coffee or, maybe a glass of wine would be in order if it causes you anxiety.
Absolutely.
But make it something that's enjoyable, something that you can look forward to every week. I think that is a great piece of advice.
Absolutely. And, Kelly, I think this is great that you talk about how you used to have those kinds of blow up problems. And now that you guys are doing it together, you don't have those problems anymore. And, once you get past that extremely uncomfortable conversation, it gets easier. It really does. It gets so much easier. Mm-hmm. And another thing, something that I do with my husband that makes our marriage very easy, and much, much, much happier, is we actually have a set limit on how much we will spend with any sort of discretionary funds without consulting the other person. So major purchases, we always discuss together. So like our limit basically is $100, but oftentimes if it's something, $50 or something, I'll even, just even send them a quick text on the phone or something to say, hey, just wanted to let you know, I went into Victoria's Secret and I found something I really liked and it was like $52. That communication is going and we're both on the same page. We're both aware. And that really can make all of the difference in the world. Now, I realize like around the holidays, if you're buying for birthdays or Christmas or other types of holidays, it can make it a little awkward if you want to buy them something and you're not supposed to tell them about it. And that's where my husband and I kind of have this forgiveness thing where our limit goes from 100 to 500. But if it's over 500, we have to discuss it first.
Yeah. Well, and I think to be very clear too about this, because this is something that I hear from women that I work with often, well, I don't know if my husband would want me to spend this money on coaching or on this mastermind program that I really want to do or whatever. Ladies, this is not about asking your husband for permission. This is about being equal financial partners in your partnership, in your marriage, or whatever. And it's about seeing eye to eye and being on the same level. And I was not on that same level by choice and by action for a really long time in my marriage. And once I stepped up into that place, into my own power, my husband saw, oh, wait, I can trust this. It is okay. Absolutely. And it's sort of, I think in a way has given us more freedom and like taken a burden off of him. Like it's not something he has to carry all on his own. But also like, I feel like if, like you say, if there's something that I really want, I will go get it. I will tell him, but he doesn't say to me, well, I don't think so, or whatever. It's about communication and it's about seeing eye to eye and being equals in the financial health of your partnership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's just going to make life so much easier and just so much happier because you're not having that fight about money all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. Oh my gosh, Sara. So I feel like we're already at time and we've just like, it's just the tip of the iceberg, but I feel like there are so many good takeaways already in what you've said. Right. I so appreciate your excitement because it's contagious. Like, I'm like, yes, I want to see my checking account go up and I want to meet my goals. It is exciting. And I really appreciate you putting that out into the world for us because not everyone is so excited about it. And we need to be around that more often.
Absolutely.
So I always ask one final question to my guests, and that is, in your life right now, as you connect with your inner voice, your place of wisdom within, what is it saying to you?
Well, it's telling me a couple of things, and I've spent the past few years really getting over a lot of the mindset and head screws that I've had to deal with in my lifetime. And I mean, one of the things right now is in my business, which is, it's very much connected personally and business. So for me to step out of the box, which I normally have out of the box thinking, but for me to step out of the box and put myself on there is not easy. Okay. It's an uncomfortable conversation I've had to have with myself. I do very well doing one-on-ones with my clients, whether it's at their place or if I'm doing it remotely, but putting myself out there is very scary for me. I am an introvert. I prefer to stay behind the computer. But I've realized that if I want my business to succeed, to be able to pay for the lifestyle that I want, to be able to take care of my retirement, to be able to take care of my kids and my husband and everything else, I have to put myself out there. And I will tell you, Kelly, this is the first podcast that I've been on. So thank you very much.
My goodness. Well, Sara, I just want to acknowledge your bravery. It is not easy to step out and make yourself visible when that is an
It's
uncomfortable
not.
feeling. And I just want to honor your courage today and being here with us. I never would have known. You did a great job. And I'm sure all my listeners will vouch for that. I sensed no nervousness or anything. So thank you so much for being brave with us today and for listening to your inner voice, and to continue to do that, because the message that you are sharing is so valuable and so needed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, really quickly, why don't you let our listeners know where they can connect with you online?
Absolutely. Well, of course, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My company is called Marketing is Not Selling. And basically what I do is I help small business owners get past some of the bullshit that's out there in business in regards to marketing and accounting. I coach small business owners. I work with them on getting their finances in order, straightening them out. Seems to be a specialty that everybody comes to me for. So I do a lot of accounting type of work, and I also do a lot of marketing work with my clients. Basically, I teach them how to create content plans, how to create business plans, how to find their ideal customers, and to truly connect heart to heart. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. And of course, my website is marketingisnotselling.com. And for those of you that happen to be women business owners, one of the things that I would suggest is to reevaluate the way that you're doing your bookkeeping. That's one of the things that we've been taught over the years, is that we have to use a certain software like QuickBooks. Well, it's not necessarily the best software for you. So when you start evaluating software and stuff, I actually have a free handy comparison chart. It's the only one that exists out on the web that compares what I call the big 5 bookkeeping systems: QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Wave, and FreshBooks. And some of these you can even use for your own personal accounting and bookkeeping as well. You don't have to use it strictly for business. And you can find that free download at bestbookkeepingsystems.com. And it's just a little sign up for it and you can get that. So
fantastic. We'll put links to all of those things in the show notes. And also you can find those right in your podcast app as you're listening. If you're listening on your phone, there'll be live links there. So you can go through and click and find Sara on Instagram and connect with her on Facebook or wherever. And I'm going to definitely go download that handy sheet. It sounds like it's very useful.
Absolutely. And I'm updating it twice a year. So I'd like to leave your listeners with one last little thought. And it's about listening to your inner voice, because everybody has a talent that they can share with the world. And you're not necessarily going to share it with everybody on the planet. But like I admitted earlier, this is my first podcast. I'm very nervous about doing it, even though I don't seem like it. I actually have a little phrase that I keep on my desk right now. And I'm just going to read it to you. It specifically says, even though I'm nervous about putting myself out there, I need to be helping others through my talents. Otherwise, I am denying a portion of the other 7 billion people on the planet a chance at happiness.
Sara, that's so good. I mean, and you know what? That is because you are a visionary woman. And I believe that so many of us, so many of you listening, have that vision. You have those talents. You have those unique gifts, and you need to be sharing them. We need you. So, Sara,
absolutely.
Thank you so, so much. I so appreciate everything that you're doing, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly. Your podcast is a vision, and I can't wait for it to explode even more than it already has, because you've got some wonderful stuff here. And thank you so much for sharing your talents with the world.
That was good stuff. Very, very good stuff. And I think it's stuff that we need to hear over and over again. I know, I told you guys some stories during that interview about steps that I've taken in my own life to really step back into my power in a financial way. And yet there's more that I can do. There's more steps that I can be taking on a daily basis. And so I just want to call you guys to action. If you don't know all of the information on your accounts, do that. Make a commitment to yourself to show yourself that you matter enough to know where you stand financially and to know how to have access to all of those accounts. And, make it fun. Get a glass of wine, go celebrate with your partner, have a dinner after you're done. Let it become something that you look forward to and something that is exciting and new and fun, just fun. Have fun with it. I love that suggestion that Sara gave us. So just a reminder, make sure you check out the link for the upcoming 5 days of journaling to connect with your inner voice. That's kellycovert.com/inner voice. And you can click the link right in your podcast app and it will take you there. Just put a name and an email in and you will be signed up and ready to go. In the meantime, I want to remind you that you matter. You have something to offer in this world that only you can bring. Your unique gifts and talents are only yours, and we need you sharing them. We need you stepping up and out into this world to give what you were born to give, because you are worthy.